is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 739. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, you make it back from the PT okay?
I sure did. Yeah, it was quite the trip.
Yeah, wait a minute. How far is that flight for you?
Oh, the flight's very close. It's like 2 hours. But
okay,
I more mean like it was an eventful PT. You know, we had
it was indeed.
My team took it down. We had a great deck in Pioneer with Rakdos Vamps deck, and then Seth won the tournament. So with Sam Purdy also making top 8, so that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, we'll get a little tournament report, especially about your limited performance and how that went for you and what you saw at the PT in just a few minutes. We're also going to do our our draft walkthrough. That means that we're going to be doing 2 drafts today in lieu of Crack-A-Packs. Why not just do the entire draft itself? And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do a traditional, and we're also going to do a best of one. We're also going to talk about the Arena Open, just mainly so that you're aware of it, and a couple of pointers for that as well. So before we get into all that, we want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/limited resources for supporting us. That's the place that you can go to directly support your favorite content creators. Many or most will have a Patreon, and we've had one for a long time. We really appreciate everybody who supports us over there. If you do support us, you get a thank you card and a sticker in the mail, and you get access to the Patreon feed, among other things like behind the scenes looks at the show, live recordings of the show that you can watch on stream, or even you can watch it after we're done, among other things. Thank you so much to each and every one of you who supports us on Patreon. And we also want to thank our sponsor, Ultimate Guard. Saw a lot of Ultimate Guard gear at the Pro Tour, both in the casual play area and in the hands of professional players. And that's because they're the best. They make the best stuff on the market, innovative products, deck boxes, sleeves, ways to organize and hold entire decks or subsections of cards. You can find them all at Ultimate Guard. If you want to check out their products, it's ultimateguard.com. And if you want to buy anything, you can go to your favorite local game store or your favorite online retailer and pick up some sweet, sweet Ultimate Guard products. Thank you so much, Ultimate Guard, for your support of the show. Now, one of the things that you get for being a patron of Limited Resources, you get access to the Patreon question of the week thread. This one is actually for Luis. It comes from Judah, who says, "Hey, Luis, I have loved the team drafts that you've been posting." Of course, they're talking about Luis's YouTube channel and mainly team drafts, but some other stuff in there too, a little MKM. And sometimes you run wild on the queues on Magic Online when the cube's actually up. And Judah says, "I have a question around team draft strategy. There have been places where you've opened 2 comparable pieces of power, like 2 Moxen, as well as a key card for your deck." And the example that Judah gives is Reanimate in Reanimator. Would you consider passing both and taking the card specifically for your deck, knowing your teammate will get a piece of power if you felt like it didn't particularly boost your strategy?
No, never once would I pass a power in that situation because I want to play with it. No.
Is that actually, is that part of the answer? Because Judah finished with, if it didn't particularly boost your strategy, but like in this example.
So it's actually pretty interesting. Let's say, here's a pick that actually came up recently. My teammate I think it was Mac, opened Atroxa and 2 Moxes and pick one, pack one. And I think the correct pick there is to take the Atroxa. Everything else in the pack was much worse. And the reason that you want to do that is you want, let's say, because team's zero sum. Your teammate getting a card that's better for their deck is about the same as you getting a card that's good for your deck, right? Like, you just care about total wins. So let's say the 2 Moxes are close enough to be equal. Let's say red and black, because I think those 2 Moxes are about the same. Let's say Mac takes the red Mox, and then the opponent takes the black Mox. Now, third pick, the teammate might not be able to take a Atroxa and use it, because imagine if the teammate's first 2 picks were like a counterspell and a lightning bolt or something like that, right? Or they first picked Solitude and second picked Thalia. Like, they're not going to take a Atroxa in that spot. However, if Mac first picks a Atroxa, it has a ton of value. It's a really strong card. And then the opponent in the middle is going to take the Mox pretty much every time anyway. And then you get to give your teammate a Mox. And so now your team has an Atroxa, which pick one, pack one Atroxa is, I don't know, pretty close to like a 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 card. right? Because you can draft around it. It's really powerful.
Extremely
a lot of ways
well
to use it.
Yeah.
And then they get a Mox and you get a Mox, so that kind of breaks even. Whereas if you just take the Mox there, their team gets a Mox, your team gets a Mox, and then your third teammate, instead of taking a Atroxa, takes something a lot worse. And then maybe even the other team gets an Atroxa. Like it actually goes way worse. So I think that any team draft, that is generally going to be the right way to approach things. Where it gets dicier is, let's say you open Time Walk in a Mox. At that point, you just should take the Time Walk, because I think Time Walk is quite a bit better than a Mox.
Pick one, pack those one. Those are not comparable. I see. Yeah, because
Judah, they really aren't.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting question along those lines. Let's say you get past 2 Moxen. Is there a world where you are supposed to repeat this process and say, okay, well, I opened Ragavan and took it, and now I get past 2 Moxen and a Lightning Bolt? Am I supposed to take the Bolt? Does the same logic apply, or?
Because it can, and I've actually seen this chain twice. I don't remember the contents of the pack anymore, but I think it was like something like a Reanimate, 2 Moxes, and then another really strong card. Like, let's say Fable the Mirror Breaker, right? That's just a really, really strong card. Well, if you end up in a spot where the Fable's great, you're like red-black Reanimator, then why not punt it one more, right? Like there's not really a good reason not to. The same logic holds up. At some point, whatever the third card is enough weaker that like you should just take the Mox for your deck, and that's fine, especially if it's something that will really. I mean, a Mox helps every deck, but some decks, get helped more than others, right? By that sort of thing.
I mean, there's a theory where if each team is going to get a Mox anyway, it doesn't really matter. Like after the first punt, where they could actually go the last 2 picks, right? The end result is similar. Like
I think the biggest thing that where kind of depends is like, how good is your deck at using Moxes versus not? Like,
because we know that they're generally excellent, but some decks are slightly better.
Like, let's say this is the same thing, but in like pack 3, and I'm playing an Academy deck, then I'm going to take the Mox because it's just really bad for me not to do so, right? Because like Mox in an Academy deck is just absurd,
right?
But it's that's the sort of thing that team draft opens up, and I think it's a good team draft pick to make.
That's really cool. Great question, Judah. Thanks for that. Luis, before we get into, we're going to talk about the Arena Open briefly, but we're going to cover it because there is one this weekend. Your PT. First off, how did it go? Big picture, and then I'd love to hear what you thought about the limited portion, how it went for you, and what you saw.
Yeah. So overall, the PT went well for me. I finished 11-5. I lost a heartbreaking last round. Actually, I was playing for top 8.
Oh man!
But
that
was a beating. Yeah, it was especially brutal because I was playing against Lotus Field, which is a good matchup, and I had like thought seized him in game 1 twice, and he just rolled off like 4 cards in a row to beat me, including a sequence where he started the turn with 5 mana and like draws Vizier, cycles it up to 6 mana, draws Vizier off the cycling to get to 7 to ultimate him and win. And it's just like, that was unfortunate. But overall, the tournament was a success. I requalified, which is nice. I wasn't going to be qualified, but I did well in this tournament. And I ended up I started the draft exactly the way I wanted to start it, which is I opened up my pack and I saw an Aurelia staring at me. So I'm like, okay, that's
best card in the set.
And then second pick, I couldn't believe it. I got past a Pyrotechnic Performer, the morph, the 3/2 that when you flip it up deals damage equal to its power, and the same is true of all your creatures that you flip up. And that is like the best red card in the set, actually, in terms of win rate. Like I don't know that it's better or worse than Incinerator, the 6 mana 6/6, but either way, I was really happy to get past it. And the rest of pack 1 is kind of interesting. The red was just really open. I picked up a Shock. I picked up a Galvanize. I picked up like a Gadget, or not a Gadget Inspector. I just picked up just kind of some like red idiots, right? And so going into pack 2, I was like, I don't know that I'm going to play white, but obviously Aurelia is a pretty big deal. First pick, I take like Gadget Engineer. I was pretty disappointed by that. The 3/2 that flips to make a 1/1 Thopter, the red-blue thing. But then second pick, Yuki Ichikawa to my left passed me a Wojek Inspector or Wojek Investigator, the 2/4 flying vigilance that makes a clue on your upkeep.
Cards
so at this point, I'm like, I've got an Aurelia and I've got a Wojek Investigator, I'm just going to play red white. Like there's no sequence of cards could stop me from playing those two cards in my deck at this point. That's right. Because there's just no real realistic way that happens. But pack 3 was kind of interesting. I opened a Tireless Tracker and a Perimeter Enforcer, the 1/1 flying lifelink that gets pumped when you play a detective. And what was kind of interesting about it is I didn't have many other detectives and kind of didn't expect to get more detectives.
Yeah, so, at this point, white is a splash. In some ways.
I was just
weird.
a little bit unsure about what I was supposed to do there. But
I mean, actual Tireless Tracker?
Yeah, it's one of the special guests or whatever.
Okay, because is that on Arena? I haven't seen that one on Arena.
I don't know. I know there's some difference there, but
but that card's awesome. Like that's, it's obviously the wrong color for you somewhat, but that card is like one of the better. Yeah, it's got to be one of the best cards in the set if it's counted to be in the set.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was I took the Perimeter Enforcer because I was like, I've got not the start, but I've got a great red white deck here. I really don't need to mess with that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a disciplined pick for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. And also like Perimeter Enforcer is interesting because even if it's a kind of bad card in your deck, you still are going to play it and your opponent's going to kill it if they can.
Definitely.
They don't have the luxury of not doing so usually. So, but pack 3 was weird because I picked up 2 more shocks. I ended up with 3 shocks. And you can also see the decks on Twitter. I posted both of them if you're so inclined. But I also took a green-white Surveil land out of a pack that didn't have anything. And then I took an Escape Tunnel, the Evolving Wilds, out of a pack that also didn't have anything. And then ended up getting an 8th pick Enlisted Worm, the 6-mana green-white 5/5 with Cascade. So at this point, I'm like, given the way this went, I just wish I took Tireless Tracker, but that's fine, whatever.
Fair enough.
Ended up 3-0ing with that deck, including a game where I cast Enlisted Worm and hit Aurelia off the Cascade. That was pretty good. And a game against Yuki, I played him in round 2, which was awesome, where I top deck Aurelia, play it, attack, draw a card with 3 creatures. He has no cards in hand, draws, plays Coerce to Kill to the control magic, steals it back, attacks me with 3 creatures and draws a card.
Because it's vigilant and has haste.
Yeah, and haste. I untap and draw, make your move, blow up the enchantment and kill him with Aurelia. So and
it still Aurelia, had haste.
Aurelia attacked 3 turns in a row. It was pretty good.
So you're just ping-ponging? It's like, no you, no me, no you. That's really funny.
Yeah, and so I ended up going 3-0 with that deck, and it was kind of a red-white control deck splashing Enlisted Worm where, like, I had the capability of fast draws, but it wasn't a fast deck. It had 3 shocks. It had Galvanize. It had Aurelia, Wojek, and Enlisted Worm, so it had some, like, bombs. So I was just happy to use shocks and galvanizes to not lose early and then win with one of my really good cards, which is what ended up happening. I then went, started 3-0, then went 2-3 in constructed. Not too thrilled with that, unfortunately. And then the next draft went a lot worse, but I ended up starting really heavy red again and picked up 2 late Goblin Mask Makers. And I ended up with this like red-white aggro deck with 2 Felonious Rage, the +2/+0 for 1 red mana, 2 Mask Makers, and just a bunch of really aggressive cards.
It's a good combo. People block that thing.
Oh yeah, it's a great combo because it lets you ideally trade up, make a 2/2 instead, and you got the mana discount because I had a bunch of disguised creatures, and I figured I don't really have any bombs, so I'm just gonna try to go under my opponents, and I also had like the case of the Beating Heart where you get Hellbent and you draw 3 cards a turn, and my deck was really low curve, so I ended up going through with that deck also. Almost decked myself against blue-red with the case where I was drawing 3 a turn, but he had the blue-red Wrath, so he like wiped the board at one point. And then I had an insane round 3 against Marco Del Pivo. He top-aided with Rhinos. He won the RC recently as well. Super nice guy. He had a great blue-white detectives deck, and we have these like really close first 2 games. He loses game 1 after mulling to 5, but the game was super close. I lose a really close game 2. Game 3, I keep Mountain, Dogwalker, Lightning Helix, 3 other spells. And I'm just like, if I draw a land here, then I have a pretty good hand. I'm not going to mulligan this. I go Mountain go. Turn 3, I draw the plains. I'm just like, thank God. Play a face down Dogwalker.
Did you think you showed it at all?
Oh no, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Turn 3, he plays his first play, which is Projector Inspector to 3/2. So I go draw, rip planes on turn 4, go planes, helix your guy, flip up dog walker, attack for 3. So I have a 3/1 and 2/1/1s. He's got no board. His turn 4 is like land, play Crowvad Haunch, and then Private Eye, the 3/3 Detective Lord. So I untap, rip a land again, play land, face up Offender at Large, give +2/+0 to one of the dogs, attack for 6 with the 3/1, and then the dog that got pumped, and he just takes it. On his turn, he goes like makeshift binding your giant, equip my haunch, go. I draw attack with everything. He wisely doesn't block, and I had a make your move to blow up the makeshift binding, put the giant back into play, hit for an additional 2, and then on his turn,
that was your combat trick somehow.
Yeah, bringing back my giant, and then on his turn he passes, and I'm pretty sure he's got the blue X tap X creatures enchantment.
It lost in the maze. Mm-hmm.
So I go land. Attack, go to attack. He goes to tap everything, and the morph I had played last turn alongside the make your move, because of course I drew lands 3, 4, 5, and 6 all in a row, was the Essence of Antiquity, the 1/10, to flip up and give my whole team hexproof. So
no, that
basically,
junker.
I didn't have a 1 or 2 drop, but on turn I went morph turn 3, turn 4 flip up plus helix, turn 5 5 drop, turn 6 2 3 drops. One of which was flipping this thing up, and it was just like. It was perfect. So
that's a blowout. That is really gross.
So I ended up 6-0ing limited, was very happy about that. And, I went 3-2 down the stretch and constructed, needed to go 4-1. So I ended up
close.
11th. Yeah, it's disappointing. And
great
especially
finish though, man.
Losing a good matchup to both games is just like the way the matchup is, I'm almost always going to know most of the cards in my opponent's hand because I just have a bunch of duresses. And so I could see what was happening when he was top decking his way out of it. But that's also how you beat hand disruption, is like you just hope the top of your deck has the goods. And unfortunately for me, my opponent did. So that was my Pro Tour. Overall, quite happy with how it went out. Like, I mean, going 6-0 and limited is always a thrill. Like, it makes me feel very good about where I'm at in terms of draft. And then, of course, even though I lost for playing for top 8, it means I almost made top 8, which was pretty cool too. So
yeah, the team did well too. And the constructed deck was the best performer among all the team decks. So
huge success overall for the PT. I'd say I had a pretty good trip as a result.
What was the sense you got about how other players there were approaching limited? Were they of a similar mindset that, aggro was kind of a good way to go?
So that's what's kind of interesting is I think that people can't help themselves. So what I mean by that is a lot of the other teams seem to like these like 5-color green or like blue black X type decks like way more than our team did, which isn't to say that I think those decks are bad or I would never draft them, but I think it's pretty clear the first place you should try to be is like a white based aggro deck. Like you just don't need to do all that stuff. You don't need to go nuts, to try to like out clever everyone. Like you could just play your good cards and you'll probably have a pretty good deck at the end of it. So that's kind of where we started, which is you got to know how to draft those decks in case it comes up that you're supposed to be in one of those colors or combinations. Like if you open you open a bomb and then like you get past Killer Among Us, and then you get past a Tunnel Tipster, and then a Nervous Gardener, and then all of a sudden, you're supposed to draft 5 colors. And it's good to have those in your wheelhouse. But I felt like PT players being who they are, that people were like way more into that than I thought they should have been.
I felt that way too, and I talked to numerous top-level limited players, and many of the teams came away actually preferring that as their first stop. Some type of Simic or Sultai base and then splashing around for other stuff that you could find and prioritizing mana fixing very highly. Some of the top players that we actually watched draft, I mean, they were taking, Case of the Shattered Pact and the Promenade, top 4 picks or whatever, over playables and stuff like that. And excuse me, my understanding is that it was somewhat a reaction to people perhaps overdrafting red and white. And to be fair to the people that we watched, they really didn't, their seats would not have been amenable to drafting red and especially white in the cases that we watched the drafts. But you could tell by the picks that they were making that they had made their mind up ahead of time almost. Like they they felt that deck was flexible and that you could basically do the old school 5-color cube strategy of like basically using your whole first pack to just eat your vegetables and take a bunch of mana fixing and then just scoop up gold cards and powerful stuff and efficient stuff, for the rest of the draft. And that was kind of how they approached it. So they were willing to toss away pretty reasonable picks for, those type of slow mana fixing cards. And they felt that they were able to survive, but it didn't actually seem to work that well. I'm hoping that they publish some of the numbers from it because I haven't got a chance to see them. I am curious to see how different color pairs did out in the metagame there, but I don't know. I feel like if you and I have sort of resigned ourselves that red-white is the default, and then yes, I mean, I talked about it last week. I like the Simic deck with the splash and doing the defensive speed and capitalizing on the mana and stuff. So it's not that that's the only way to do it, but I was really surprised to see that they had basically just dismissed it.
Yeah, I just don't think that it really makes sense to try to like jump through a bunch of hoops when at the end of the day, your win percentage and your power level aren't that much better. There are some formats where it is really good to do that kind of stuff, and I do that all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that I wasn't going to do this at all, but certainly I don't think that, trying to be there and taking like if someone wanted to play the Transguild Promenade or whatever, the land that comes into play tapped and they have to pay 1, if they played that against me, I would have just been thrilled.
I mean, you would have been so excited.
Like my decks were just very good against that,
Yeah. Did you get a chance to see the Jean-Emmanuel Deprat Ben Stark play?
I didn't see it live, but I heard about it. It's really funny.
It was really interesting. Yeah, we'll probably just hang on to that one. Maybe we'll talk about it on a different one, or you can look it up. I don't know if there's a video of it on YouTube yet. I'm sure there is. It was part of the coverage for that round. I was in the booth with Monty DeVuti and we covered that one, but it was a very high leverage decision that was really interesting because of the dynamic at play. But somehow Jean-Emmanuel found what had to be the worst option of the three and got kind of punished for it.
Yeah, that is certainly the sort of thing that can happen. And I mean, I didn't come out of the PT thinking the format was that different from when I went in. It kind of lined up with my expectations. And in fact, for a second, I was like, wow, these other teams really like these do nothing 5-color decks more than we do. Are we wrong? And then I don't think we are.
No, you just ran over everybody and went 6-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can draft those decks. I just don't think that's where you're supposed to start. Yeah,
you want that to be a weapon in your arsenal, but not your first go-to. Okay, before we jump into the actual drafts here, Luis, there is an arena open this weekend. It is MKM. So first, you're now aware, and you can jump in and do that. Any advice? There's a best of 3 option here. You just played a lot of best of 3 leading up to the PT.
Yeah, I will say that best of 3 of this format is quite a bit different than best of 1. Just be aware that like if you've played all best of 1, going to best of 3, like not only just the obvious, like, yeah, you get to sideboard, but also just my experience is doing the best of 3 drafts, like the decks are a little worse. The format's a little bit slower. Just people in the competitive drafts, like at the PT or like testing in the house, like the drafts on Arena, even in the ranked drafts, the best of 1, they're just a lot less competitive. Like you're going to be, closer on playables. You're going to have a slightly worse deck, which first of all means like don't freak out if your deck's worse than what you're used to having it look like. Yeah. But also just like you've got to just be aware that things aren't. You don't have like this is where drafting the 5-color deck can come in handy sometimes if like things aren't open, then you kind of got to go that direction. There's some cards I do want to like touch on, like Make Your Move is a card which I think even in best of 1 is just very good. Like okay. I would always main deck 1, and honestly I had 2 in both decks, and I started 1 in both, and I sideboarded up to 2 every single game. So I'm coming around to just main decking 2 of that card. Because it hits a pretty wide range of things. Because decks that have, first of all, every deck can have all the things, right? There's enough of them running around, whether that's artifacts, enchantments, or big creatures.
But also, target, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Decks with big creatures have the best targets for that, in some ways. But decks that don't have big creatures are a little more likely to have enchantments. Because if you don't have big creatures, it means more likely you're like white or blue, and white and blue have a bunch of enchantments for you to blow up.
True. And they're high leverage ones too.
That's the other thing is when you cast this card, it's like usually a blowout. You're either killing a big creature, killing like a makeshift binding on something, getting the ETB, getting your creature back into play at instant speed, even like blowing up like an equipment or something in mid combat. Like there's just a lot you can do. So make your move is a card I pretty heavily prioritize. Obviously having stuff like pick your poison is good. Any of the like classic sideboard cards. Another thing that you really gotta think about when you're playing best of 3, and this is why I think it feels so different too, is playing Magic when you know a lot of the cards in your opponent's deck is a very different experience. It's good. It's going to change your plays a lot, and there's a lot of little micro decisions. Like once you're in game 3, like for example, I actually sided out a Felonious Rage a lot of the times in that deck because it gets a lot worse when your opponent knows you have 2 of that card. Like they're just going to play around it, and at the PT or Arena Open Day 2, people are good there. Like they're just going to make that card a little bit worse. So sometimes it can be worth siding out a trick for a different trick because if in game 3 I've seen these 2 combat tricks from you, I'm going to try to play around those 2, and I'm not going to play around the third one quite as much. In the dark, you try to play around all of them to the degree you can. Once you have information, you should just bias heavily towards playing around the stuff you know about. So switching things up, especially if it's like side grades, can be pretty good because someone might play around one card and then all of a sudden you have a different one. Cards like Essence of Antiquity go up a lot in value once you know what you're playing against, getting to give all your creatures hexproof and untap them against effects or whatever, but also go down in value once your opponent knows about them. So it's kind of a balance of like thinking about the cards they've already seen and how that'll impact how they play, and then looking at the cards they've shown you and switching things up. Like I had some, the Innocent Bystander, right? The 2-mana 2/1 that if it takes 3 or more damage, you get a clue. Well, I had 2 of those in both my decks, but I did side them out pretty frequently when I'm playing against people with like Inside Source, because like they get a 1/1 on the house right there, and I don't want. I'm basically, and this is something you learn over a long period of time, so don't worry if you're not here all the time yet, but I am all the time, especially at the PT. I'm always thinking about all this stuff. I'm looking at how all of my cards interact with all the cards they've played and trying to reduce the mismatches on my side and increase them on their side. When your opponent plays a bunch of 2/1s, siding in like the 2-mana 1/1 with a Trinkety ability can be awesome. Most of the time you play those cards main deck, but that's not always the case. And sometimes you can really swap your stuff around to get these like good matchups. And definitely, that's something you want to think about for best of 3. And there's like a pretty good amount of room to do that in every format. So just kind of keep that in mind. Like, sometimes you'll want to side in the 4-mana 3/2 flyer to the Griffin Detective, which is a really bad card, right? Like you should try not to play that card. There's some decks that are kind of vulnerable to 3-power flyers. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're sideboarding. One of the things Paul Rietzel does, he's in the Hall of Fame. If you didn't know who that is, he hasn't played a bit, though he did play this PT. He invented the Vampires deck even.
He's also an absolute GOAT tier limited player.
Yeah, he's one of the best to ever have done it all time in limited. And you know what Paul does? And I've watched him do this many times. When he's playing a match at the PT, he just writes down every card the opponent plays on his notepad. Like, I wouldn't
every single one.
I wouldn't go so far to do that if it's going to disrupt your playing. You got to figure out the balance. I know some people who write down just combat tricks and counter spells or whatever, but Paul does that, and I've watched him play a lot. And then when he goes to sideboarding, he's just looking at that list of cards while deciding what to sideboard. Because I don't do that because I remember all the cards, but
you think Luis is joking, but he's not.
But I think that's something that Paul, has developed as this is his best strategy for presenting the optimal decks in games 2 and 3. And if you want to take your game to the next level, if you really want to be an elite player, you got to think about this stuff. It's a lot on balance, but you kind of add to it brick by brick, and at the end, you got a brick house, right? You can take them down. So
that's right.
I think arena opens are a huge opportunity, especially for people who are trying to improve, because you get basically a Grand Prix Day 2 level of competition just from your house. And that's pretty incredible. Plus, you can win some money, which is awesome too.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to bring up before we get to the actual drafts in regards to this is that, Day 1 is sealed, and these are play boosters. I know that we can't do anything, like there's nothing proactive to be done. But is this going to be weird? Like where you can open up 1 million rares?
I guess so.
Is there an adjustment we need to make as play? I mean, I know we can't do anything, but like,
well, I'm just saying, make your move. The stock keeps rising. Like, you know, you're just more likely to play against Incinerator the Fallen or whatever. The more rares get opened, and people are like, basically, the more rares get opened, the more you'll play against them because people are always going to play them. So and make your move traditionally does really well against rares because like a lot of the rares are cards that would get hit by that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when we think back to before play boosters, you know, you would think sometimes if you went to like a local tournament or something like that and it was sealed and it was a longer tournament, you know, if you were still around in round 7, 8, maybe 9, you know, at an old school PTQ or whatever, you know, you would look around at the decks that were still undefeated or doing well, and they were absurd, right? They just had those pools that had, you know, 3 awesome on-color rares that all kind of worked well. And then a good mix and some mana or whatever to make it work. But now I wonder if that's just more frequent, like if the variance actually does increase given the fact that there can be so many more rares where, you know, you take the best deck in the field, and is it going to be even more crazy, you know, than that used to be? Are we going to hear people complaining more, you know?
Like you are.
Like, what do you get to complain more now? Is my question basically.
Well, I mean, nothing's stopping him at any point. But you are more often going to play against you know, Agris Cost, War Leaders, Crusade, you know, whatever the enchantment, plus like a Lightning Helix and an Aurelia. Like that. Like this will happen more often. This sort of thing. But I wouldn't expect Sealed this weekend for the Open to feel like dramatically worse than it has in the past.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it as we go forward. All right, let's get into the drafts.
One real quick note.
Sure.
Also, part of the reason that is the case compared to like a Grand Prix is you're done at 7 wins. So I don't really expect, and I don't even know how the pairing works. So when I'm 5-0 in the Arena Open or 5-1, I don't really expect to play against a deck that's different than when I'm 3-1. Like that hasn't at least anecdotally seemed to me. Whereas if you go to a Grand Prix and, you know, you're 7-0, you expect to play against a monster every round. At that point, you're like, I'm probably playing against people who are great players and have good decks. Like,
yes.
You know, it's like at 4-0, you expect to either play against someone who's good or someone with a good deck. The greater the X gets when you don't have any losses, the more likely it is just that both those things. It's like, oh, good, playing against, you know, Nathan Stoyer and he's got 4 on-color bombs. Well, this is going to be easy.
Yeah, the scariest in those situations when you sit down across from somebody who you don't know. So they could be just a really good local player, but they just don't play on the bigger stage. And then early on, they make a mistake or they show that they don't really know. And you're like, oh no, like their deck must be off the chain. They're 7-0.
It's like, oh, well, Gruff Triplets is coming. I can tell because my opponent's misblocked 3 times by turn 5.
Yeah.
But they're 5-0. So
exactly. That was a funny thing that happened. Okay. I am going to jump into a best of 1 queue, and then we'll do a traditional after this as well. Why don't we pretend that you're at the PT? And so we'll walk it through.
It's been so long since I've played at the Pro Tour level that I'll try to do so.
But you know, assume that the players around us are pretty good, and you know, and that you are playing for it all. So, all right, we are in the queue, and our first pack is up. And we've got Case of the Stash Skeleton for our rare. Only 1 rare? What the heck? We got 5 uncommons though. Neighborhood Guardian, Agency Outfitter. It doesn't add up. Torch the Witness and Sample Collector. And then we do have some notable commons here as well. We've got Your Friend Make Your Move. We've got a Deduce, a Murder, a Suspicious Detonation, Fanatical Strength, and a Granite Witness. This is a stacked pack. This is nice.
Yeah. So immediately I would kind of dial in on Neighborhood Guardian and Torch the Witness as the 2 cards you're basically deciding between. Oh, and a quick aside, I think that you should also avoid black pretty heavily. I know that's not news to people, but after our review, it's like we were pretty unanimous that in order to get into black, you would need a good rare. In Case of the Stash Skeleton, it's a fine card. If you're playing black, you're going to be happy to put it in your deck. Not the card I would look to take here. I would just take Torch the Witness. I love starting in both red and white, and Torch I think is better than Neighborhood Guardian, though they're both very good.
Mm-hmm. Torch the Witness, by the way, was the punchline to that Jean-Emmanuel Duprat Ben Stark moment. we were talking about earlier. Okay, so we got Torch the Witness next. Rare is gone, but there is Absolving Lamasu, Wrench, Clandestine Meddler, Culvert Ambusher, Private Eye, all in the uncommon slot. In the commons, well, there's a Shock, Extract a Confession. There's a Hard Evidence, which has been, well, going hard. There's another Fanatical Strength. And then if you're a complete crazy person, you could take a Public Thoroughfare.
Yeah, I would just take Swords to Plowshares here.
Shock?
Shock. I think Shock's awesome in this format. And like I mentioned, I had 3 in the first deck. I never thought about siding it out, and I was always happy to draw every copy I drew. There's just so many things that it kills, and it does exactly what you need to do in this format, which is it catches you up or really presses your advantage. Like when you go turn 4, play a face-down creature, shock the card that you played on the last turn, like that's how you get very far ahead. And starting with Torch the Witness Shock is a pretty amazing start.
Wow, we did get past a rare. This time it's Krenko's Buzz Crusher, the 4/4 flying trample. And then at uncommon, there's Absolving Lamasu, Forum Familiar, your boy Living Conundrum. And then commons, there's a Make Your Move, Suspicious Detonation. There's a Crowd Control Warden. I guess there's a Shady Informant, but just Buzz Crushing here?
Yeah, Buzz Crusher being an artifact makes it quite a bit worse than it would be otherwise. Like if you ever get this Gearbane orangutan, you're just gonna, feel like throwing your deck in the garbage. But there's no good card in this pack. Like, I would certainly take an off-color card if there was something interesting in the pack, but there just isn't. So there's just stay mono red. Like the longer you can stay one color, the more flexibility you have later, which is a very, very big advantage.
Yeah, and Buzz Crusher, if it sticks, is pretty powerful. It looked a little better totally at first, but yeah. All right, next is uncommons or Case of the Gorgon's Kiss, Get a Leg Up, Crawl, Whipcracker, and there's a Treacherous Terrain as well as a Magnetic Snuffler. And then at common, wow, we've got a Galvanize here as well as Vidugazi Inspector, Reasonable Doubt, Deduce, and a Due Diligence. So nice.
Look, there's some drafts that are really difficult to navigate, and you've got a lot of really close choices. I'm not looking to have those drafts happen at the PT or day 2 of the Arena Open. I want this draft where I open a great red card, take another good red card, take another good red card, and get a 4th pick Galvanize. Like, don't mess with it. You don't have to get clever. You don't have to be like, well, if I take the Treacherous Terrain, then.
Yeah. Is this kind of how that first draft went for you? That deck looks so good.
Yeah, I just started by taking a bunch of, like, I took a red-white card and then like 5 red cards in a row, and then like a mediocre white card, and like that was pack 1. It was like,
jeez.
Oh, look here. So here we've got Living Conundrum, which I can, after extensive testing, can assure you is not really a thing. There's a Reckless Detective. I had 2 of these in my second deck, and that's part of the reason that deck
card
is
so good.
The card is just cracked. Like it's just so good that 2 mana 0/3 that attacks as a 2/3 and lets you filter through your bad cards. Like it's just an amazing card. The only competition, because there's like a Flotsam, a Due Diligence, there's a Museum Night Watch, which is way worse than a Detective, an Alley Assailant, and then there's an Offender at Large. That card's also really good. I'm actually really high on Offender at Large after playing with it more. But yeah, I think you just take the Reckless Detective here and kind of thank your lucky stars that you got a 5th pick Reckless Detective and things are just cruising.
I'm thrilled. Wow. Next, uncommons are It Doesn't Add Up and Lumbering Laundry, but there's a Dogwalker in the pack. There's also Museum Night Watch, Projector Inspector, Rot Farm Mortipede, Vengeful Creeper, and another Public Thoroughfare.
Yeah, I mean, the Dogwalker is excellent, and it's still a mono red card. You have not committed to a second color. Like, to recap, we've got Shock, Galvanize, Torch the Witness as 3 excellent removal spells, and then Reckless Detective, Dogwalker, and Krenko's Buzz Crusher as our 2, 3, 4 drops.
Yeah, it's good to be Luis Scott-Vargas. I got to draft with you more often. This is amazing.
I mean, like I said, like you don't want the drafts where you pick 1 course to kill and pick 2 a Killer Among Us, and you're trying to figure out how to like navigate. Like, just take the good cards.
Totally. Next up, we do have a rare. It's Thundering Falls, which is the red-blue Surveil land. There's No More Lies, Reasonable Doubt, Alley Assailant, Red Herring. I actually like that card. Suspicious Detonation, and a Vengeful Creeper.
I think this one's actually kind of close.
Yeah.
It's Red Herring versus the land.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm mentioning the land is like it's really powerful to have a dual land that surveils. I would probably just take that. I was planning on playing this as a 1-color land. Like, let's say you end up red-white. I think playing the Thundering Falls is still pretty good value. And if you end up blue-red, it's just so good to have a land that taps for both your colors. Like, limited mana bases are bad. You don't want to get mana screwed.
That's right. Our pack 1 pick 8 is Wrench, Curious Cadaver, Lumbering Laundry, Defenestrated Phantom, Alley Assailant, and an Airtight Alibi.
I mean, these are all pretty bad. I guess Lumbering Laundry is colorless, so you could take that.
Sure.
You really don't want to play Defenestrated Phantom if you can at all avoid it.
We'll take the Landry. So here's our wheel pack. We got Agency Outfitter. It doesn't add up. Make Your Move, Crime Stopper, Sprite, and Deduce.
Well, this is a close one too, because I think Make Your Move is great. You could take it, but you have a blue-red Surveil land, and Deduce looks pretty good in this deck.
Yeah, and there's 3 decent blue cards here. The Outfitter's okay, and then a Sprite and a Deduce. So we'll take the Deduce.
Yeah, this looks like a great place to pick up Deduce.
Wow, we got that Hard Evidence back.
Then Hard Evidence wheeled, which is also a pretty big game. It's better than Bubble Smuggler, I think, by quite a bit.
Yeah, so, I think if you look on 17 lands, Hard Evidence is like the best blue common. Which is a little embarrassing, perhaps.
It's like a reprint too, right? It's on the list or whatever.
It is, which is why it's a little weird. There's Absolving Lamassu, Living Conundrum, and Benthic Criminologists. I'll just take.
I guess I'd take Criminologists here. Also, you want to get real spicy, is if they put dramatic accusation on your Krenko's Buzz Crusher, you can play the Criminologists and sacrifice it.
Oh, there you go. We got Reasonable Doubt, pack 1, pick 12 with a Magnetic Snuffler.
I think that card is still pretty good. And a last pick, Living Conundrum, that you're not going to play.
I'm going to put that one in the thing.
So after pack 1 here, you've got a start to a really excellent blue-red deck with Shock, Galvanize, Reckless Detective, Dog Walker, Buzz Crusher, and Torch the Witness as red cards. And blue has Hard Evidence, Deduce, Reasonable Doubt, and then the Criminologist is whatever, plus the blue-red land. So we're not locked into blue here, and in fact, this pack's pretty bad. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so we see Case of the Uneaten Feast at rare, and then we've got It Doesn't Add Up, Get a Leg Up, Rope, Repulsive Mutation at uncommon, and then there's only one red common and one blue common. Technically, there's Granite Witness. There's also Bubble Smuggler and Innocent Bystander is the red common. I think I would take Granite Witness maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty grim here. You've got a lot of early plays. You can afford to take a 3-drop here, so I think Granite Witness is fine.
This is terrible, though.
Yeah, it's not a good pack for sure.
Let's see if we can upgrade. We got Tragic Slip in the Mythic slot somehow. There's a Furtive Courier, a Knife, another Galvanize in our colors. There's also a Crime Stopper Sprite.
I mean, just take Galvanize. That's an excellent card, and still not completely committed to blue, though obviously it would take something pretty good to move you off it, because blue did seem open pack 1 for sure.
Man, this Tragic Slip has some pretty crazy artwork. There's teeth around the edges.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there.
Kind of a lot going on. Yeah, so we'll take a Galvanize. That's Galvanize number 2. And maybe we could wheel the Courier or the Sprite.
And that's part of the reason I really like the Deduce pickup is you have Shock, Double, Galvanize, Torch the Witness. Converting that removal into an advantage by casting Deduce is pretty nice.
Yeah, we have Reasonable Doubt too, so it lets us leave that up and then kind of decide what we want to do. Next pack has Insidious Roots, Case of the Shattered Pact at uncommon, and then in our colors there's a Gearbane Orangutan, Goblin Maskmaker, Red Herring, Rubberbelt Braggart, and a Granite Witness, and I guess technically a Shady Informant too.
I just take the Red Herring. I think having cheap cards is nice. It also works nicely with the Galvanizes. You get to sack it to draw and then Galvanize for 5.
Mm-hmm. And on turn 2 it smashes.
You need another Granite Witness, and it isn't looking like a Maskmaker deck to me.
This is one of the best downsides that they've ever put. The fact that it's a clue is really cool. You almost never get fully punished for it, but it's still kind of awkward. All right, we got another Torch the Witness, pack 2, pick 4.
Pick 4 Torch. I mean, red is just open.
It's open.
You ran into some bad packs the first couple picks here, but we're getting past Galvanized, Torch the Witness.
Yeah.
I think red is very open, and blue is actually fairly open too. I think they're just in the right colors.
Yeah, there's a Cold Case Cracker in this pack as well. There's other notables. There's a on the Job and an Extract a Confession for colors that aren't ours. There's an Innocent Bystander, but we're kind of covered there. So yeah, we'll take Torch the Witness, pack 2, pick 4.
Yeah, excellent.
Next up, there's Archdruid's Charm at rare. Also at rare, there's Niv Mizzet. And then at uncommon, there's Expose the Culprit. That's the one that flips things up or whatever. And then in our colors, otherwise, there's Hotshot Investigators and Innocent Bystander.
And Riftburst Hellion is also
and Riftburst Hellion, right.
I kind of think, given the Double Torch and the Deduce and the Galvanizes and the Hard Evidence, you could actually take Hotshot Investigator here. I don't think you need a crappy 2-drop here. Just not that deck really. And the hot shot is actually pretty good once you get up to enough mana.
Kind of a junky pack 2, pick 6 here. There's a Forum Familiar and a Polygraph or Breakout at Uncommon. In our colors, there's a Jaded Analyst and an Innocent Bystander. I guess we could take Fairy Snoop.
Yeah, I don't think you need the Jaded Analyst. I just think that Shock, Hard Evidence, Reasonable Doubt, Double Galvanize, plus Reckless Detective and Red Herring, like you just have 7 cards that cost 2 or less mana. The Jaded Analyst is like for decks that didn't get enough of those cards. And ooh, this pick 7, there's another Deduce here, which I think is quite a bit better than Dramatic Accusation, another Fairy Snoop, or Undercover Crocodile. Though that card's good too. Yeah,
and I agree, by the way, about not playing the 3/2s. This archetype has the ability to do early removal. It's more for like green blue. So a second Deduce goes into our pile. Pack 2, pick 8 has Candlestick, Jaded Analyst, another Reasonable Doubt, and there's a Sanitation Automaton as well.
I will play a second Reasonable Doubt in this kind of deck. You even have a Reckless Detective to kind of mill through them in the later game. And double Deduce, double Reasonable Doubt just means you can pass with 2 mana up and just you don't really care which one of those 2 you cast. You're pretty happy casting either one.
Our wheel pack has the Bubble Smuggler and the Innocent Bystander, as well as a Fairy Snoop.
All right. I mean, that seems like a pretty clear sign that you're in the right place.
What do you like here? The Smugs or Snoop?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you don't need a second Fairy Snoop.
No, these are all just kind of the same. All right, we did actually wheel both the Furtive Courier and the Crime Stopper Sprite.
I think it's possible we're the only blue drafters here.
Yeah. Do we want the Courier?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Furtive Courier is not bad.
Yeah, I've liked that card okay. And then 3 red cards to end things, a Gearbane or a Goblin Mask Maker. There's also a Rubberbell Braggart, but we don't want it.
I would take the Gearbane, I think. You have double Deduce. It's not crazy to consider just like turn 2 Deduce, turn 3, 4/4. And Cold Case Cracker with 2 cards left in the pack. All right.
Geez, and the other one's an Innocent Bystander as well in our color. And then we wheeled the Expose the Culprit, super wheeled it. I'll put that one in the board. Okay, wow, nice. Pack 3, pick 1. Lamplight Phoenix sitting there in the rare slot. There's also Yaris as another rare. And then there's No More Lies, Private Eye, Soul Search for the uncommons. And then there is a Gadget Technician, which is a card we'd like to wheel. There's also an Out Cold and another Dog Walker. So there's some decent stuff that we could get back, but Lamplight.
Easy Lamplight Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Really try not to play this card until you have 4 evidence in your graveyard, because you don't want it just getting like killed and then you have no recourse. It never comes back again after that. And it's just such a powerful card if it isn't killable.
Worth noting here, this is our 23rd card. We do have 1 land, but we're effectively 1 playable off right now, and that's pack 3, pick 1. So that's pretty good. Pack 3, pick 2 has one of the best red commons, Person of Interest. It also has an Out Cold, a Gadget Technician.
Oh, I like Gadget Technician here. In specifically red blue, the fact that you can cast it as a 3/2 face up for 4 mana, which is your ideal scenario, makes it better than Person of Interest, I think. Because this is a good 3 mana play or a good 4 mana play, whereas Person of Interest is just a good 4 mana play.
Yeah, and you could argue that a 3/2 and a 1/1 flyer is better than a 2/2 and a 2/2 menace can't block, right?
I think it generally is.
Yeah. So that's, and you get the flexibility for free. So
then you'll probably wheel this Out Cold as well.
That would be really nice. All right. We've got a decent uncommon here with Case of the Burning Masks. That's the one that does 3. Also available is another Cold Case Cracker. I don't think we want Magnifying Glass, Thinking Cap, or another Orangutan.
No, and I think Case is quite a bit better than Cold Case Cracker.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Cold Case Cracker, but yeah, we got that with 2 cards left. So like, we just don't need to prioritize it. And like you said, Case, is a removal spell that can be a 2-for-1 with some selection too. It's pretty strong card, especially in this type of deck. Like, we're going to be able to solve it reasonably. Yeah,
you flip your Dog Walker, you have like a Thopter token or what have you.
Oh, nice. We got a Forensic Gadgeteer, the one that makes it so you investigate whenever you cast an artifact, but it also just makes all your clues and other stuff just only cost 1 to go.
How many artifacts do you have? You can't have very many.
No, we don't have that many ways to trigger it, but like, we have a lot of deduces and stuff like that. Yeah, I found this card to hold its own.
There's a deduce in this pack too, which might come back around. Yeah, I would take the Gadgeteer. You cast the Buzz Crusher, you get a token.
There you
or
go.
Get a clue.
Which Buzz Crusher?
There's another one here.
We just got another. Pack 3, pick 5. We've got Connecting the Dots and Buzz Crusher at rare. Then there's one of my favorites, Eliminate the Impossible, as well as Harried Dronesmith. Is it just the Buzz Crusher, or is it?
I would take Eliminate the Impossible, I think.
I love that card. There's also an Unauthorized Exit, which we just never got one of. But
I don't think you really need that because you have like a bunch of galvanizes, shocks, and torches. Like you just don't need that sort of thing. And here there is another Cold Case Cracker, a second Gearbane Orangutan, but you're not going to play that. And the question is, do you want bad or Suspicious Detonation? You have a lot of clues. Suspicious Detonation gets pretty good if you can reliably crack a clue.
My inclination is towards the second Cold Case Cracker, though. I'll go with the Detonation because
I think it's close. I don't have a strong opinion.
What is going on here?
Seventh pick Galvanize here. All right, yeah, we'll take it over Red Herring and Hotshot Investigators. That's not particularly.
Let's just say difficult. This PT table didn't test as much as we did for this project.
Yeah, I think also you can. I'm looking at these reasonable doubts and thinking. You probably are cutting at least one. Just once you have a bunch of good removal, you don't really need that too much.
This entire pack is all cards in our colors, Luis. It's pack 3, pick 8. There's Living Conundrum, Bulrak Clan Basher, Criminologist, Demand Answers, Innocent Bystander, and a Braggart. I'm going to take the Basher.
Yeah, Basher's good. Not an amazing card, but it's totally
but there's 6 cards. They're all blue or red.
And then look, the Cold Wield, and there's still no more Lies and Private Eye in this pack. So like, I guess everyone in this draft is drafting like white, green, and black. Like those are the colors that are being drafted.
Aren't No More Lies and Private Eye both like 80s pop songs or something? It feels like there's an album there. All right. And we wheel the other out cold as well. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we ditch a reasonable doubt and get these out colds going.
You have to ditch a lot more than that. You have a lot of playables.
Yeah, we're at 32, and we did wheel that Cold Case Cracker. That's why I took the Suspicious Detonation a couple of packs ago because we had flagged this one for wheeling, and it actually did. 2 cards left, and they're both red: Rubber Braggart and a red Herring. I'll take another Herring. This also triggers the guy, right?
Yeah.
And we have 2
the
of them.
Here.
Yeah. Yep. And then a Gearbane Orangutan to finish off our pack. Wow. So we got lucky with the red part, and then the blue just ended up being open as well. So we ended up, really perfectly placed. Like, actually, look at that, Luis. We actually don't have a single card in our entire pool that isn't blue or red, right?
Yeah, I guess not.
or colorless. Like, that is completely crazy.
Well, you only have 11 cuts to make, so that shouldn't be too hard.
Not too bad. So we've got 18 creatures right now. Do we feel like this deck we want to be kind of more on the assertive side with it?
No, it doesn't really look like it. Like,
okay.
I mean, I think it's possible, but it double torch, shock, having triple galvanize, double deduce, like you could just build a blue-red deck that just kills all their stuff and draws a bunch of cards. Case of the Burning Masks, Lamplight Phoenix, like this deck is just incredible.
This deck is really good.
Yeah, boy. I mean, the Suspicious Detonation is actually looking suspicious now. Like you just have so much removal, that's just going to be your worst one. Same with like one of that you cut both Reasonable Doubts already. Like Bubble Smuggler doesn't look that good.
Yeah, Bubby Smugs is out. What do you think about Fairy Snoop?
Yeah, you certainly don't have to play it.
I'm going to cut it then. What do you think about Granite Witness?
Also definitely cuttable. Like you're not aggressive, so that makes it a little bit less good.
Right.
These red herrings aren't like the best in the world, but they do trigger the Forensic Gadgeteer, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
The Bulrak Clan Basher is definitely a card you could cut.
Yeah, it's medium. It's one of the only things we have that we could put 5 mana into.
Yeah, that is nice. Having you, man, it sounds so weird, but you could cut one of the out colds. Like,
oh yeah, that's true.
You're mostly killing all their stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll cut one of those. Cold Case Cracker, one of the red herrings.
Eliminate the Impossible is another card that.
Yeah, I mean, strangely,
it's a great card, but if you have this much removal right now, you've got 3, 6, 7 removal spells plus an out cold, like they might not have a creature in play all the time.
Is there any argument to cutting a deduce and keeping the eliminate?
No way. No, not in this deck.
All right, we'll just cut the eliminate then. All right. Do you like 17 lands here? Actually, we could keep both and run 16. We have a relatively
maybe just go
curve.
to 16 lands. Maybe you just keep eliminate the impossible
or
and cut
or an out cold.
You even have a Thundering Falls, so like, you know, your mana situation's just like a little bit better.
All right, so here's our final deck. We've got 1-drops, Hard Evidence, Shock, and then technically double Torch the Witness. 2s, Deduce ×2, Eliminate the Impossible, Galvanize ×3, Reckless Detective, 2 Red Herring, and a Dogwalker. At the 3-drop, we've got Forensic Gadgeteer, Furtive Courier, Case of the Burning Masks, Lamplight Phoenix, and then we have 2 disguised creatures with Gadget Technician and Bulrak Clan Basher. And then at 4, which is, by the way, where our curve stops, we've got 2 Cold Case Crackers, an Out Cold, and a Krenko's Buzz Crusher. For our mana, we've got 16 lands, 8 mountains, 7 islands, and a Thundering Falls. Slow clap for us.
Yo, this deck is awesome. I foresee a lot of wins with this deck.
Are you jealous right now? Like, this deck is just too good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have that deck in the open this weekend. Tell you that much.
No kidding. That would be. Can I do that? Can I make that a thing? All right, so we're gonna jump into the traditional queue now, but these ones take a little bit longer to fire usually. So, do you want to go over the Jean Emmanuel play?
Yeah, it's an interesting play.
Yeah. So I'll set it up, but basically, it was Ben Stark versus Jean Emmanuel Depras. And Ben and Jean Emmanuel was on like a 4-color slow deck, and it was splashing for the dragon, Incinerator of the Guilty. And Ben was on black-red wannabe aggro. It was just sort of a low to the ground, reasonably built black-red deck. And in this game, Ben had missed his land drop 3 or 4 times in a row. So he basically had 2 mountains on the battlefield forever. Now, he was able to actually put up a little bit of a fight and get a few creatures on the battlefield. One of them was a Goblin Mask Maker, so that allowed him to cast a face-down disguise creature, and he had a 2-drop, something like that. On the other side, Jean Emmanuel did not miss land drops, and in fact built his mana up until he cast Incinerator of the Guilty. And when he did so, he was at, I believe, 15 life. And he passed the turn, and he had plenty of stuff in his graveyard, and he passed the turn back over to Ben. Now, the interesting dynamic here is, so Ben draws his card for the turn, and he says, go to attacks. And Jean Emmanuel says, sure. And Ben attacks with all 3 of his creatures. He's got like a 2/2 and 2, basically a 2/2 and 2 1/1s. It was a 2/2, a 1/2, and a 1/1. And he attacks with all 3. Now, there's an interesting like game theory dynamic here, right, Luis? Because this is a forced attack from Ben. Like, he is going to lose his board if he doesn't kill that dragon. And if he has a way to kill the dragon, like cleanly, he would cast it now. And the one way he had to cleanly kill that dragon was the 1 red-black sorcery destroy a creature. Right. So if he had that, he certainly would have done that first and then just gotten his attack in. So if you're sitting in Jean Emmanuel's seat, you did get a chance to look at Ben's deck list prior to the game.
Right, because they were the featured pod, so both players get access to the opponent's pool, not the deck list. And
right.
But you get to see all the cards they drafted, and then you can obviously make some assumptions as to what they're playing as a result.
That's right. And again, 2 mountains on the battlefield. And so, but the interesting dynamic here is that this is a forced attack from Ben. Like, so that would lead you to think, well, I probably can get away with a block here. But the question is, of your 3 choices, you have don't block at all, block a 2-power creature, or block the best 1-power creature. And Jean Emmanuel went over his options. And I think this was just a simple case of he forgot, or, you know, if somebody would have whispered in his ear the card Torch the Witness, which was on, of course, Ben's list, then I think Jean Emmanuel would have made a different play. But he did decide to block the 2-powered creature, again, at like 15 life. and against an opponent who was woefully behind on mana and was about to be smashed in the face for 6 and lose his entire board. And Ben immediately played a swamp from his hand and cast Torch for 2, which doubles it to 4, and that equals 6 damage to kill the dragon. What do you think happened there? Did he just forget about the Torch?
Yeah, I think the thing that pushed very strongly is that Ben, it was a forced attack. But Johnny Manuel got a little lost in the weeds. I can tell you fairly confidently that I wouldn't have blocked there, not because I would necessarily remember Torch, but it's just like, what goes wrong if I go to 11, then attack and kill all his creatures? Like, right. How am I losing that? He can't even play another creature that turn. If he does, he also dies. So It's like, or what if Ben has like Shock plus Felonious Rage or something, like some like, combo. And overall, I just don't think that
you would give yourself the room risk to make a mistake there by just saying the extra damage, 1 or 2 damage isn't going to change.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Now, if John Emmanuel Deprat was at like 8, very different game, and then I would have probably blocked. But the way it was, he tried to check all the boxes and thought he was safe, and that's the risk of thinking you're safe and trying to check all the boxes, where I don't know that I would have had the confidence that I could account for every single thing. Right.
Okay, well, our pack's up, Luis. We got a Coveted Falcon, Teysa, a Forensic Researcher, Chalk Outline, Glint Weaver, and Curious Cadaver. And then a bunch of random comments. Do you like Teysa? Are you a...
Teysa's amazing. I would slam Teysa here.
Okay. Yeah, this is a 2/3 death touch, and you get to investigate at the end of your turn if somebody lost life, for each opponent who lost life this turn. And whenever you make a clue, you get a 1/1 flyer, which then lets you keep doing the thing.
Yeah, when you crack a clue, but yeah.
Or when you crack a clue, sorry, yeah.
But okay, so Teysa, if you can get Teysa started, Teysa is just absurd.
Okay, so we will try to do that, and we'll try to be white-black or something similar. Our next pack is up. Our uncommons are Absolvian Lamasu. It doesn't add up, which we've opened like 100 of. Long Goodbye. That's a nice one. Hedge Whisperer. And then at common, there's a Snarling Gorehound. There's a Sanguine Savior, technically. Not much else.
I actually really like Sanguine Savior if you can hard cast it. I don't really like it if you can only flip it, but I would still take Long Goodbye here. A 2-mana removal spell that even gets around Ward, so you can just, on the draw, you play your second land, say go, they play their disguised creature, and you just kill it.
Yep.
That's awesome. And like, look, I don't want to draft black, but this is how you draft black. That's exactly what I said. You opened a really good card in black, a bomb, took it. Second pick, there's like a good black card to take. And one of the advantages of drafting black, especially at a table where people know what's going on, like at the PT or Arena Open Day 2, is good players are generally also avoiding black. So you can get kind of paid off, even though you still shouldn't want to be black. Like, it's not good enough that you could go into it without a good reason. But once you're there, like, you can get an advantage if other people are avoiding it. And in this pack, there's a Soul Enervation as one of the uncommons. That's the 4-mana flash enchantment that gives a creature -4/-4. And then it also drains them for 1 whenever a creature leaves your graveyard. It's that versus Make a Move versus Unscrupulous Agent, the 2-mana 1/1 they discard. Plus, there's like a couple good green cards, Tunnel Tipster, Vidu-Ghazi Inspector, Projector Inspector. And here, I think I would just take Soul Enervation. I just don't see a big reason to depart from black, even though some people I know would take Teysa and try to draft a 5-color deck. The other thing is, Teysa's at her best when you can play a 2-drop into her. Like the Snarling Gorehound's really good because your goal with Teysa is to hit them and then play Teysa.
That's right. All right, our next pack is up. We have Long Goodbye, Soul Enervation, Teysa, pack 1, pick 4, Sanctuary Wall, Case of the Gorgon's Kiss, Crime Novelist are the uncommons. And then there's a Museum Night Watch, Defenestrated Phantom in white. There's no black cards.
Yeah, Museum Night Watch is totally acceptable. Also, it's pretty nice with Teysa because like they're kind of priced into blocking, and this is a good card to trade off. So I like this. If Unscrupulous Agent in the last pack was like a little better at attacking, I might have wanted it over Soul Enervation, but I think Soul Enervation is a fine card.
All right. Yeah, so I agree with you. We got Soul Enervation. Now we've got ourselves a Museum Night Watch to add to the team here. Next pack, there's Case of the Pilfered Proof, which is the detective case. Then there's a Griffknot Tracker. Then there's a Griffknot Tracker and a Repeat Offender in black.
Well, Griffknot Tracker really is bad. Repeat Offender is at least a 2-drop, and you can have the hope of like 2-drop into Teysa on the play. I just think 2-mana 2/1 with a minor ability is a playable card in this format. Like,
yeah,
I played a lot of Innocent Bystanders last weekend, and sanitation automatons and whatnot. Like those are all fine. And Repeat Offender, you're not really happy if your game plan involves activating it a bunch. But like if you have nothing better to do, this card can get kind of scary.
And I've seen it steal games for sure. Next pack up has Alley Assailant, Toxin Analysis, and Absolving Lamasu in our colors. There's a Mistway Spy, Reasonable Doubt, and blue. Just an Alley Assailant here, or?
Yeah, I think that's where you should take. I actually really like Toxin Analysis. I'm actually wondering if that's just the pick here.
Yeah,
I think the card's awesome. I probably actually would just take Toxin Analysis.
Let's just do that.
I kind of wish we had the Unscrupulous Agent now because that's a good combo, but it's good with Museum Night Watch. It's just good when you're forcing trades. It's really efficient card.
It is.
And it replaces itself. So even if you're trading up, you're getting your card back. And then, of course, getting a couple life off Lifelink is pretty nice. And look, it worked out because this pack has an Alley Assailant, a Basilica Stalker, and an Auspicious Arrival, which is also a great card. But here I think I'd be a little more prone to take Alley Assailant now that we just took a combat trick.
Okay. Yeah, what do you think about the Basilica Stalker?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like I try not to put that card in my deck. Like obviously it's playable because it's a disguised creature that has a good effect on the late game, but Alley Assailant you can cast on 3. And look, another Repeat Offender. We're really doing it.
Pack 1, pick 8 is here, and we've got a Repeat Offender. We could also take a Defenestrated Phantom, but I really don't like that card. No. So we're going to go for Repeat Offender number 2, but this is filling in that 2-drop slot for our Curve into Teysa potentially. Next pack has a Glint Weaver, Behind the Mask, Reasonable Doubt, Agency Corner, and a Suspicious Detonation. So kind of nothing for us.
I would just take the Glint Weaver. So we're 9 cards in now, and we're going to end up having 1 black-white card, 1 white card, and 7 black cards. Mm-hmm. So taking a green card here could end up being something that we want to do.
That's right. Pack 1, pick 10, kind of nothing. I'm just going to take a Rot Farm Mortipede here.
Yeah, Mortipede's okay. It's not great.
I could see us being green-black splash for Teysa, though. That is definitely something that could
White's
happen.
Just very clearly not open. Haven't gotten past or seen any premium white cards, certainly. Oh, look, this pack has a Runebrand Juggler. I think that's enough better than Magnetic Snuffler or Cerebral Confiscation that I'll just take the Runebrand Juggler, and you never know. I don't think you're very likely to end up playing it, but it's not 0%.
There's Sanctuary Wall and Case of the Gorgon's Kiss for pack 1, pick 12. They're both terrible. And then we got Kylox, Visionary Inventor, last pick. All right, let's see if this second pack gives us a little bit more definition here. We've opened up Blood Spatter Analysis for our rare. There's also a Karlov, Watchdog, a Clandestine Meddler. There's a Culvert Ambusher and a Glint Weaver in green for the uncommons. And then for the commons, there's an On the Job, Alley Assailant. There's a Slice from the Shadows. There happens to be a Shock here as well. What do you like here?
None of this really.
Kind of interesting. I wonder if we... Yeah, I mean, Blood Spatter Analysis and Runebrand Juggler just aren't great.
They're not nearly as good as Teysa. I'm kind of thinking of the Clandestine Meddler. And the reason is you have 2 drops, and it's pretty good to put Menace on those. And Toxin Analysis works really well if you're consistently menacing. I think I would take Meddler over Slice. Yeah, I mean, those are the 2 cards. I wouldn't take a red-black card here. I just don't think you're supposed to. Well, it kind of might work out to stick to white because this pack has 10th District Hero as the rare, and this card's really good.
Yeah, that's a really nice card.
And then it's got some good red cards. There's like a Reckless Detective, a Lightning Helix. You're not really in a position to take those. And there's a Novice Inspector and an On the Job and a Museum Night Watch. No black cards in the entire pack. So I think just 10th District Hero is great. And this is going to be one of those drafts, it looks like, where you're aware you're getting cut on one of your colors and you just draft it anyway. And that's fine. That is a fine place to be. This is very similar to my first draft at the PT where I knew white wasn't open, but I had 2 white rares. So it's like, all right, I'll play 5 white cards and the rest red cards, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, your white cards were so good. Okay, 10th District Hero, pack 2, pick 2. This is pack 2, pick 3. And we've got we've got the GOAT. We got Make Your Move.
Yeah, I would probably take Make Your Move because the pack's all red cards. There's Yaris, Roar of the Old Gods. There's Cornered Crook, Crime Novelist, Deadly Complication in red-black, Hustle Bustle, and then Agency Coroner and Basilica Stalker as both mediocre black cards. Just take Make Your Move. It's fine.
Terrible pack for us. There's even a Loxodon Eavesdropper in the pack, which I like. So,
dropping any Eves.
Yeah, so just to recap, we've got Toxin Analysis. We technically have a Sanctuary Wall, a 10th District Hero, Long Goodbye, 2 Repeat Offenders, an Aliasane and a Clandestine Meddler, Teysa, Museum Night Watch, Rot Farm, Mortipede, and a Soul Innervation right now. Next pack comes up. Okay, there's a Novice Inspector pack 2, pick 4.
Yeah, pick 4 Novice Inspector. You're just like pumping the fist. You're like, wow, this card's awesome.
Yeah.
Every game that I started with one of those in play, because I had one in one of my decks, it was like, it feels like the game's going great. Every game my opponent casts on turn 1, it's like I'm on the back foot.
Yep.
And it's just a 1/2, but it's just really that good.
1/2. It's so good though.
Toxin Analysis plus Novice Inspector. Boom.
Did you put it in your cube?
I haven't yet.
Is there room for 2 of those?
There is power level wise. I'm just not sure how I feel about having 2 clones of each other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, here's another Toxin Analysis for you.
Yeah, it's basically second Toxin Analysis or second Make Your Move, or red-white Surveil Land, but I don't think we're actually going to be long on playables in this deck. So I'm thinking that a second Toxin Analysis is kind of what this deck wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, we did have the double Repeat Offender plus the Clandestine Meddler, so...
You got some suspecting going on.
Yeah, we didn't get a dog yet. There was one earlier, but we took a better card. I think we took Innervation over it or something, but... All right, next up, there's another case of the Pilfered Proof. Oh, here's a Wisp Drinker Vampire. There's also a...
That card is awesome. That's the 2/4 flying that when you play a creature power 2 or less, it pings your opponent for 1, you gain 1. And you can also give all your small creatures Death Touch and Lifelink. Yeah, Wisp Drinker Vampire is awesome.
Have you ever activated the 7-mana ability on it?
No, but I had to play around my opponent activating it because it's possible they were about to,
That's annoying. Pack 2, pick 7. What is this one? Duskmantle House of Shadow. Oh, that's old. Auspicious Arrival and Make Your Move. Get us our rival going, or?
Yeah, I think so. Though there is Shady Informant is really good at Toxin Analysis.
Oh, true. What do you think? Yeah, we'll just.
I actually might take the Shady Informant here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe I would have, but we ran out of time. No cards for us. Pack 2, pick 8. There's a case of Burning Masks.
You can play Crowd Control Warden. It's not an ideal scenario, but it's fine.
You're right. I forgot about that. All right, the wheel came back from our pack, and it has the Karlov Watchdog and the On the Job on it.
All right. I like the Watchdog a lot. I think I would probably want to take that. What I like about Watchdog is that it. Oh, well, you're getting. First of all, you get passing On the Job the next pack, so that kind of negates that.
So
Second,
we're a genius.
This is the kind of deck where we're bordering on not enough creatures to really make On the Job good. Watchdog is kind of like an On the Job, but also a creature.
Okay. And then pack 2, pick 11. There's only blue and red cards, so I will take one of them. Pack 2, pick 12. Same exact thing again.
Nobody likes Offender at Large.
And then we got Case File Auditor last pack, but I don't think we have any cases at all.
Well, you do have the one enchantment.
It's enchantments. You're right. The Innervation. Okay, well, I'll put it in the board for now, but we'll keep it in mind. Pack 3, pick 1 is here, and our rare is Case of the Ransacked Lab, but we've got Call a Surprise Witness at uncommon in our colors. There's also Furtive Courier, Goblin War Chief, No More Lies, and Sumala Sentry. There's a Museum Night Watch, Slice from the Shadows as well. So it's between Slice and Call.
Yeah, so Call is nice because you have Teysa. 3-mana bomb is a really good reason to play Call.
Oh, good point.
You also have Alley Assailant,
take it, actually.
Clandestine Meddler. Yeah, and 10th District Hero. You have enough really good creatures. You have 2 bombs and make that 3 because that's a second Teysa. Okay.
Well. Oh, man. I was just going to say it's really good to have a backup plan for your Teysa, and then we got a
Teysa is actually a great legend to have multiples of because if one's working, then you don't care that you drew a second. So because they just give you a bunch of clues. Plus you could attack with Teysa, trade it off, play second Teysa.
Totally.
All right. Well, I mean, this is the reason to draft black. It's not the depth at common. It's just the fact that you get a bunch of good bombs in this particular draft. Oh, this is interesting because there's Extract a Confession, but there's also Fuss Bother. And Fuss Bother is really good. I would probably just take that.
Okay, we can go with Fuss and Bother. There's also Vanifar in the pack, obviously way far up from us casting it, but kind of interesting. Sudden Setback to Deuce Blue looks pretty open, but yeah, we'll take Fuss and Bother.
Yeah, I mean, you can cast both halves. Like putting a +1/+1 counter on all your attackers can be awesome, but also with double Teysa, making 3 Thopters and starting to hit them to get the clues and stuff. That's really good.
Very nice. All right, we'll take that. And then, we got a Soul Search here. There's also a Due Diligence. Yeah, but Soul Search looks good.
Soul Search is fine. This is the black-white sorcery where you get to exile a card from their hand, and if you exile a card that costs 1 or less, you also get a 1/1. So like if you can nab a 1-drop, it's just absurd. But mostly it's like you cast this card on turn 2. Yeah, you're not affecting the board, but you could take their 2-mana play when you're on the play, or their 3-mana play when you're on the draw, and that does kind of affect the board, right?
How about this? We play Soul Search on 2, take Slice from the Shadows that was going to kill our Teysa, and then play Teysa attack and start making clues.
There we go. You solved it.
Okay, pack 3, pick 5. There's your favorite, the Essence of Antiquity. There's also Cerebral Confiscation, Granite Witness, and Crowd Control Warden.
I kind of like the Essence. It's pretty good with toxin analysis.
Is it?
You give it a Death Touch. It just kills whatever it fights, and then
okay, we'll take it. I know you. It like
can protect your Teysas. Oh look, and then you picked up a Hazda Vigilante, the 5-mana 4/4. If you could get 2 +1/+1 counters on the 1/10, you have a 3/12. Like that's just unstoppable.
Yeah, who needs Teysa? We've got a 3/12. All right, we'll take Hazda Vigilante here. There's a Krovod Haunch, and there is a Shady Informant, and as well as a Raucous Theater.
With double toxin analysis, I kind of want the Shady Informant. Like it's kind of hard to do it all in one turn, but imagine you flip this end of turn, right? Or whatever, like at some point. You attack them, and then they block with like a 2/2, and they just have a 3/3 out, and then you can use the toxin analysis to snipe because the damage trigger will work too. Okay. Well, if there was ever a time, Illicit Masquerade here is the only card that we'd consider playing. Not that I think you should necessarily consider playing it, but you got it for free. Is this something? It doesn't really seem like it is.
I don't know. There's some combo. We'll take it and figure it out when we do the deck build. I doubt it. And then
Museum Night Watch is a nice one.
We did wheel the Night Watch, so we will take that. That's our second one of those. And then we did get the Make Your Move or Crowd Control Warden back for pack 3, pick 10.
Yeah, well, if you really wanted to simulate the Pro Tour experience, you'd take Leyline of the Guild Pact because it was worth like $20. So let's just say both the ley lines that were in people's on my team's draft over the weekend didn't wheel. So
look, we got a third toxin analysis for the last pick.
Analyze the toxin.
We're doing it.
Now I really wish we had taken the unscrupulous agent.
That's okay though. We'll make it work. All right, so that's the end of the draft. Let's see what our deck actually looks like from here. It is just black-white. We got 48 cards right now, with including 17 lands in there. Novice Inspector, Triple Tox Analysis. We want those. Auspicious Arrival, Call a Witness, this, Long Goodbye. Repeat Offenders probably just have to be in there. Soul Search. All right, the Auditor can go. Can we cut one Make Your Move? Maybe.
Definitely can cut a Make Your Move.
Not Teysa, Watchdog, Night Watches are 3s. On the Job's not amazing. I'm going to cut the Masquerade because there's just no way.
And the Mortipede too.
Mortipede goes away. Wisp Drinker's in. Do we want the Crowd Control Warden?
No, you can cut that one.
We want Fuss and Bother. What about Essence of Antiquity or Hazda Vigilante? Are those?
Well, you could cut both, I suppose. It's probably right to do that. Essence of Antiquity is also a card I really like out of the sideboard, so keep that in mind. And then, how many creatures is this?
This is 13. Like, we have an On the Job and a Fuss and Bother.
Well, I think the last cut is probably the third Toxin Analysis or the On the Job would be my inclination here.
Yeah, it probably is. Like, 2 Toxin. We have some cool stuff with Toxin Analysis, but it's not like we have 3 Shady Informants and a bunch of tossable 1/1. So I think we cut one of those.
I would cut that. And then you get to play just a little 9/8 here.
Yeah. So here's our deck. It is a Novice Inspector. We're going to start with the high point and 2 Toxin Analysis at the 1s. And then the 2s are Auspicious Arrival, Call a Surprise Witness, which gets us back some nice stuff, including 10th District Hero. We have a Long Goodbye and 2 Repeat Offender with a Soul Search. And then the 3s, we've got Make Your Move, Alley Assailant, Clandestine Meddler, 2 Teysa Opulent Oligarch, 2 Museum Night Watch, a Shady Informant. Those are in their, face down mode. Then we've got a Karlov Watchdog, an On the Job Soul Innervation, and a Wisp Drinker Vampire at the 4. And then either at the 3 or the 6, depending on what the board looks like, we have a Fuss and Bother. And then we've got 9 Plains and 8 Swamps for this thing too.
This deck's good. I mean, this deck is what I would expect a lot of black decks to look like, which is the 2 Teysas are really carrying a lot of the weight. Mm-hmm. But Teysa's a busted card. Wisp Drinker Vampire is amazing. If this deck it has a 10th District Hero too. If this deck just plays a 2-drop, plays Teysa, hits with the 2-drop, plays Teysa, like, you're going to win that game almost all the time. And having double Teysa plus Call a Surprise Witness means like you're going to have a Teysa in play a lot of the time with this deck.
And I can do it after combat, right? I can. They don't get to know about, I better trade off for that random 2-1.
In fact, that's how you should do it. Like, you attack them with your 2-1 Repeat Offender into their disguise creature, and they're just like, okay, I'll take it. And then you just go, okay, Teysa, where they would have definitely blocked if they knew that that's what was going to happen.
Would you, if it was a draft on day 2 of the Open and I said, here's your deck, would you say run it back, or I'll keep this one?
Oh, I'd keep this deck. I mean, double Teysa, Wisp Drinker, 10th District Hero, Novice Inspector with a Fuss Bother and a decent amount of not removal. Like, is the 2 Toxin Analysis. Mostly it's kind of carrying that, but like, it has a Make Your Move and a Soul Innervation plus some good tricks. Yeah, no, this deck's good.
Okay. Yeah. And this is like one of the best Call Surprise Witness decks I've had too. Like, it really gets you some stuff back. All right. So that's going to do it. There's our 2 decks for our draft walkthrough. Hopefully they were helpful to you. If you're listening on audio form only and you want to see all the little things that we can't cover necessarily, this is in video form as well on the YouTube channel for limited resources. And you can find it there if you want to kind of fill in those blanks. We try to be, as vocal as possible so that you can follow along in case you can't be in front of a screen at the moment. But if you did want to, you can find the decks there. That is going to do it for this episode of the show. If you want to find us on social media, Marshall_LR and Luis's LSV. Pretty much everywhere you can find everything related to the podcast at lrcast.com. I want to thank our sponsor, Ultimate Guard, for supporting the show, as well as you via the Patreon. It's patreon.com/limited resources. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
So last week, as I played in the Pro Tour, I have to figure out all the cards for the deck. And I'm kind of particular about the cards I play, but it's up to a certain point. So to give you an example,
okay,
when I'm ordering cards ahead of time, I'll try to order the versions I want, of course. And I do really like having, for example, Ice Age Sulphurous Springs. I think the Foglio art with the little demon chilling in the springs is just so
he's
cool.
In the hot tub. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like all my cards matching, and, about an hour before the constructed round started, after I finished my last limited round, for example, I went and I bought a set of Dissension Blood Crypts, the original printing, because I'm like, I think these look pretty cool. I'd rather play these than I had 2 Guild Pact and 2 of another, whatever the other set was, and I was just like not loving that. But, there's this big scramble because you register a deck and then you have to find the cards for the deck. And it's not that I've ever really thought I won't find this card, but there's a bit of tension there because you're going in, there's the dealers from MagicCon, but they don't generally carry stuff like Duress or even like Damping Sphere. And, we have a team channel, like Discord, and we have a card needs channel, and everyone just posts, here's all the cards I need. Then other people on the team lend out the cards. Like, I lent a bunch of cards and borrowed a bunch of cards and all that, right? Because everyone has different things. Mm-hmm. But my pickiness has to start going down once I'm borrowing cards, I'm seeing what the dealer has. And it was really cool because Matt Sperling was on our team, and he had a bunch of CDH decks, and he pulled out like a Japanese Duress, which actually matched my Japanese Saga Duress, which is funny that I had one too. He had like a Damping Sphere and all that. But then I go, and the Sulphurous Springs I ended up with was 1 Ice Age and then 2 of the like white border 6th edition one, which is like the same picture as Ice Age but white bordered.
Oh no.
But I don't know why this is for me. I'll try up until when the tournament starts to get all the cards. Like I want all Saga Duresses, I want Ice Age Springs, I want blah, blah, blah. Once the tournament starts, my desire to do that just drops to zero. So once I played round one with these like white border Sulfur Springs, like mismatched Sulfur Springs, I was like, that's fine. I'm not going to waste any more time looking for them. Like they've already earned their keep. I put them in the tournament. I sleeved them up. I played them, and
they're part of the family.
At that point, I would just feel too bad abandoning them. So it is funny, this last minute scramble, and I got to tell you, I hate having not having all the cards in physical possession on Thursday night, the night before, even though I never do, because I know at some point tomorrow I'm going to have to go find this. I'm not Ben S, who's like, oh, I don't want to get this card because it's in the draft format. Someone will open it. It's an uncommon. It's like,
God.
It's just like, okay, well, that's just like a different world than the one I live in. But
it's not worth
I just find
stress,
it funny that I have this duality of, I want all the cards to be in the edition I want, and I try very hard to make sure they're all the ones I want to play with, because that makes me I don't like playing mismatched lands. I painstakingly collected a bunch of Guru lands, and that's what I use for most of my basics. In fact, when I played against Yuta Takahashi, the world champion, the former world champion, we both had all Guru lands. We're both looking at each other's lands and stuff.
So we know what he did with that world championship money.
Oh yeah. So, but then once round one starts, I'm done with it. I have no desire to change anything. We're locked in. So I know everyone's different for that stuff. Paulo, famously, him and Matt Nass are just going and grabbing lands from the draft box to put in their constructed deck, and they have, mismatched plains and islands in their blue-white control. I could never do that. No. For me, it's a big, big decision. Okay, which of these cool-looking basics am I going to play? Beta or Guru or APAC or whatever, and it's kind of whatever I'm feeling at the time. But that's just me. So. I know that you're more on my side of things when it comes to this. If you were to ever play in a constructed tournament, then you'd be kind of doing the same thing.
I'd be asking you to borrow your Guru.